Well, as the investigation into the killing continues there, let's get an insight into how the Secret Services here in the UK are dealing with this. Let's talk to Richard Barrett, the former head of counter-terrorism for Britain's external security service MI6. He's now a senior director at the Soufan Group in New York, from where he joins us. Now, these two suspects were known to the security services. How were they able to get under the radar to do this?
Well, I'm afraid that there's an awful lot of people who may come across the radar, as you put it, of the security services, just in doing their due diligence of trying to keep tabs on any extremist movement, whether it's one inspired by religion or inspired by any other cause. But sifting out the people who are likely to commit a vicious, horrific crime like occurred at Woolwich from the sort of great mass who may go to demonstrations and shout and wave their fists and stuff, but actually not do very much more, that is such a difficult job. So I'm sure that the first action of the security services now will be to check to see if any more attacks are likely from the same group of people. And once they've done that, I'm sure they'll be going over their files to see if they did miss a particular sort of indicator, if you like, that these guys might have done more than just turn up to demonstrations.
Now, we don't know much more about the two extra arrests that have just very recently happened. But in your expertise, do you think this plot was well organised, or were they chancing it? Had they been watching these barracks for a long time? What do you make of it?
Well, it looks to me like a pretty spontaneous type of attack. Okay, you knock somebody down with a car and hack him to death with a meat cleaver. I mean, it's hardly sophisticated. And it certainly doesn't look to me as though there was any sort of outside coordination, thinking this would be a major event and a major shock to the British public. Of course, it has been, because it's very visual. The guys hung around waiting to be filmed and so on, blood on their hands and all this sort of thing. But it seems to me to be rather a low-tech, small group type operation where they got themselves all riled up and ready to take action, and then sort of one thing led to another. Now, I'm not in any way speculating whether that's the fact or not. I mean, it may turn out to be completely different, but that's what it looks like at the moment.
But this very chilling idea that they did hang around to get as much publicity as they could, where are they getting these ideas from? Are these from the websites that we hear so much about?
Well, that's the whole point about terrorism. Terrorism is not about stealth killing. It's about terrorizing, and it just shows here this really poor guy who's left a small child and a really grieving family for him to be murdered in that way. It's one death, and it's caused all this stir. So it shows how you can spread fear by a relatively minor action. And that, I think, is the basic message of all terrorist groups, is to try to do that. And of course, there are many things out there on the internet and so on which encourage that sort of form of thinking.
Richard, of course, I'm not saying that I'm not suggesting in any way that these are interlinked with, say, the Boston Marathon bomb attack, but it does come very soon afterwards. Are we seeing a trend? Are these attackers getting encouragement from one another?
Well, yes, I think that's a fair point. And the Boston Marathon, I think, that will have got the world's attention, and these guys will have been very well aware of that and the impact of that. But there have been other, of course, attacks by individuals or small groups in the UK, unfortunately, and elsewhere. We had Mohamed Merah in France, for example. That created a big stir. And then we had the Anders Behring Breivik attack in Norway, which created a big stir. So, if you want publicity, it's quite clear that you can get it by committing these sort of, as they're called, lone wolf attacks or small group attacks.
OK, well, Richard Barrett, thank you so much for your expertise and sharing your insight. Thank you very much. That was Richard Barrett, a former head of counter-terrorism for Britain's MI6.